Okay, Lee Waddell is a veteran stunt performer with over 60 film credits to his name. He notably did stunt work as Ghostface in both Scream 1 and Scream 2. We are so thrilled that he's taking the time to chat with us about Drew's iconic opening scene. Welcome, Lee.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's always great to do podcasts, and thanks for having me in. And I'm super blessed and honored to be able to sit here and do these. So I always like doing the podcast because it's a great way to stay connected and actually place people and places and times and stuff like that. So I really enjoy doing these. So thanks again for having me on.
Oh, we're so honored. You're our first guest ever, by the way. So it's a big
Really?
deal. Yeah, this is our 10th episode and you're our first guest. So
Well, I'm doubly honored. This is great.
you're the
This is
guinea
so fun.
pig.
Yeah. Well. If anybody's going to screw it up, it'll be me. So let's find out what happens.
Okay. So obviously we're here to talk about the opening of Scream. But before we get into that, we saw that you have a credit working on Drew Barrymore's 1992 cult film Poison Ivy. Is that
That
true?
is true. That is very true. I came in there to help out a little bit on some rigging on that, and one of these days, if I ever do run into her again, I'm going to remind her that I dropped her on her face.
Oh,
And
please tell us the story.
so, I mean, you guys have seen the film, I assume.
Yes.
Yep.
I think it's the final scene where she's jumps out the window, throw it, whatever, and there's a close up of where her head hits the driveway, right? When
Yes.
she's looking at camera. So we went to shoot that night, and it's like how we want to do this, and we're like, oh, we can't hide the pad because the director. I mean, it's a close shot, right? You can see the asphalt. And Drew, she's pretty game. I mean, she really is. And I'm like, yeah, how about we just do this and this? I literally straddled her, right? She's laying face down. I picked her up about right between her legs, literally picked her up by the hips. She held plank, and on action, I drop her.
Okay.
And she just, there ain't no cheating on that one. She just ate it. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
How many times did you have to do that scene?
Not many.
Okay.
Because I wasn't gonna,
That's good.
she's like, yeah, let's go for it. I'm like, yeah, maybe one.
So wait a minute, you were involved in
Because I don't want to be I already felt bad enough. I'm like, okay,
so you're behind two of her on-screen deaths,
Yeah, that's right.
really.
Yeah, that's the tie-in with her, I guess, is I kill her off and drop her on her
That's
face or something. So.
Pretty hilarious.
And I'm going to remind her
really
of that. I'm sure it's in her repressed memory banks of the film, but I will remind her of that one of these days I cross her path.
I love
That's
it. Thanks for
amazing.
sharing that. I've always wondered about, because it is like her face really does,
Like
hit
plant
shape
onto the
it.
ground.
It really hit it, and she really did it. And I'm like, I didn't like doing that. It was a solution that was safe, and okay, we know that it's, there's no way you're going to fall on your face without, getting a bruise. And she just cowboyed up, man. She just did it. I'm like, oof.
That sounds like her.
Yeah, she's a very sweet, fun, super professional, great personality, great energy. I really enjoy working with her.
Oh, I love that.
So I hope
That's
I
really
hope I get to cross
cool.
her
I
path
love
again.
having, yeah, I love that early insight.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've read that you came to Scream via stunt coordinator Tony Cesare. So I don't know how to say his last name.
Well, he said, I think you're actually right. I think a Cesare would be the Sicilian part of it, but
Okay.
it goes by Caesar.
Okay.
But
So yes, we heard that you came through him, who'd worked with Wes before. How were you chosen as the stunt person for this particular part?
so Tony and I mean, we go way back, and we've done a bunch of Wes's films. So Tony was Wes Craven's stunt coordinator for 20 years
Oh.
out of Wes's career. And so I'd worked with Wes. I can't even remember what my first show was, but it was like either the original Nightmare or it might have been Shocker, but whatever it was
Wow.
way, way back. And so Tony and I had this great working relationship, and we still run each other occasionally and talk occasionally. He was just in Southern California last week. We got together, had a quick lunch, and so we were still in touch, which is great. And so Tony had this what they call it originally. Originally, that film was not called Scream.
Scary movie.
Scary movie, yeah. So Tony's like, hey, we got this film. Why don't you come on up and blah blah blah. And He goes, I'm like, yeah, what are we going to do? He goes, yeah, well, let's do a little this, a little that. He goes, you've worked with Drew before. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, so I think the tie-in helped a little bit.
Okay.
I had a good working relationship with Wes. I did, I don't know how many Wes's shows I did, 8, 10, whatever it was. I don't know. And so Tony was instrumental on bringing me in for that opening sequence.
Cool. I love that insight that because you had that history with her, like never heard that before. And that's what we're all about, like getting these little nuggets that maybe, aren't commonly spread around information.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just give you my perspective on things because obviously I was there, and it goes back to that joke of I've seen all these. There's quite a few like experts and biographies and all this stuff. I'm like, well, nobody talked to me about it, so I guess they don't know my side. And not that I really want to talk to them, but when someone's telling me how the scene went down, I'm like, not quite accurate.
I can imagine that happens a lot.
There is actually a lot of incorrect. I'm not going to say disinformation, but there's a lot of incorrect information out there.
Yeah, that's one of my pet peeves. I bring it up on the podcast a lot. I'm always like, actually, this isn't true. It was this.
Yeah, correct. And I try to dispel that when I see it, if it's written or verbal. I try to, go, so here's my perspective, but my perspective was different from Wes or Tony or
Sure.
wardrobe or makeup or whatever. But I was a guy in the suit, so I figure mine's pretty accurate.
It's amazing. Like, it's my favorite movie of all time. And that scene has been so important. I've basically been obsessed with that scene for 25 years. So it's just amazing to talk to someone who was actually there.
And I appreciate that. It's really, because at that time we had no idea it was going to do this. Here we are 25. Well, this is to the 25th year of Scream 2, right? So 26 plus years ago. I'm just a working stunt guy. I just want to do a good job, make a paycheck, go off to my next show, and that life was grand. And I had no idea it was going to do this. If I had had this idea, man, I would have stocked up on all those masks.
Oh, I bet. Because you were in the sort of fake mask that K&B Effects created.
So the first one. So I was in the K&B mask, all right? And the K&B mask superseded that was the original mask, right? And then Fun World came into the scene. They weren't on the scene until 96.
Yeah.
So that K&B mask was the original mask.
Because you also, tell me if I'm correct, you also did the scene with Henry Winkler, right?
Right.
Okay. And I don't know if you've ever seen this. There's really cool footage of you that Entertainment Tonight has on the set for that scene. Have you ever seen that?
No, I have not.
Okay, I will find it and send you a link. They actually show you with the mask off on set, which I thought was really cool.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a real good behind the scenes sneaky peeky thing of during the opening sequence with Drew, right?
Yeah.
There's a really good, that's neat. I never saw the stuff with Henry Winkler. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I will find the link. Entertainment Tonight. They have all kinds of footage in their vault, and every once in a while they let some good stuff out.
Yeah, that'd be really great to see.
Okay, I'll find that. So I'm sure you're aware that Drew wanted Roger Jackson, the voice of Ghostface, to be like a mystery to her when you guys were filming. Did she ever feel that same way with you, or were you guys just like, you just worked together?
If I recall it correctly, she might have seen, and I never really asked her about this, or Wes for that matter, but as far as I know, she never saw anybody in full wardrobe, i.e. me, prior to that night, because that was one of the few times in filmmaking where you get to shoot the film in sequence.
Right.
So first night of shooting was the first opening scene. Right. So that very seldom does that happen in films. It's, you shoot by location, logistics, and all the other 1,001 things that go on. And we just happen to be able to shoot in sequence. So as far as I know, and you probably asked Drew this if you ever run into her.
We do occasionally.
Yeah. If you do, go, hey, I was talking to and ask her if that was the first time that she saw Ghostface in full wardrobe that night.
That is very cool. That would make sense, sort of based on how real she wanted everything to feel. That would make sense to me.
Well, we if you go over, and I don't want to do shameless plugs, but we are. If you go to my website, the guy who does my website did Wes Craven's website. So I found Wes Craven's original web developer, said, hey, I want you to do my website. And in his vault of stuff, he has the original Wes Craven tapes where Wes talks about how he motivated Drew um, to freak out. So they had a very intimate conversation the night before filming, and she was telling a story about how, and she's a big animal rights lover, right? And everybody loves dogs and cats, myself included.
Yeah.
And she was reading an article, and it really struck her very deeply about some guys just abusing dogs by lighting them on fire, right? That's horrific.
Yeah.
And Wes, she gave Wes permission to go there with her. So I remember being on set that night and heard Wes going, "They're pouring gasoline on the dog."
Oh, God.
And Drew would lose it. But I didn't know the correlation until I heard these tapes. Here we are 25 years later. I heard these tapes of Wes saying how that evolved. So I never figured out what that was about. I didn't really think about it until I heard these tapes.
It all clicked.
Yeah, I'm like, man, no wonder she lost it, because it would just take her to that emotional, disarray when he would say that to her. And it was because when you look at that opening sequence, she's losing it.
Oh, yeah.
She's a fine actress, and she went there and got raw and got nasty, and I'm like, dang, So it was really neat to be able to tie that in 25 years later.
Love that.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to have a conversation with that someday.
That's great. So we know that she needed a really trusting relationship with Roger Jackson, who is the voice of Ghostface. But what can you tell us about how Wes directed the two of you kind of as a duo?
So, I'm not a classically trained actor. I blunder through it. I can pull it off, but not like Drew, not like a quote unquote real actor. So, Wes gave me, when Wes and I and Tony sat down at the beginning of that evening, I'm like, Wes, tell me about this Ghostface dude. He wasn't even called Ghostface at that point.
Right. So funny.
I think we called him a ghoul or, scary dude or whatever. I said, what is this guy? Who is he? What is he? How's he act? Give me something to go on. And Wes, with me, we were talking, he's like, he's think Phantom. That was a quote. And so I would go back and like, okay, Phantom the Opera, how a phantom moves and stuff like that. So that was kind of the direction he gave me on it. And then Wes was such a great director. As most directors of high caliber, they already have the image in their head. They know what they want to see. And so he would sit there and we'd block it once or twice. I'm like, all right, let's, he'd go, let's do one. I'm like, yeah, let's try this. And, yell action, get it in 1 or 2 takes max. And then if you see, like in the opening sequence, some people realize it, some don't, that he goes from normal life speed and then all of a sudden it goes into slow motion. So it takes me, when I'm chasing her down, I'm chasing Casey and getting ready to kill her. It takes that and just agonizes the viewer. Absolutely. It's like watching National Geographic, right? Like, oh, that poor is a gazelle. Like, you really want the gazelle to run faster, but it's going to get eaten. And so Wes did that with the viewer by undercranking or overcranking the camera and getting it to go to slow motion. So it just prolonged that whole opening sequence.
Yeah, I love that.
And so that part was pretty good. But you'll see him if you watch that sequence again, you'll see like when I have the knife above my head, I'm actually going to stab her, right? You'll see that I'm holding the knife really stupid. It's like unnatural, but he wanted the knife to look a certain way with the way the light hit it. So he wanted the pause. He wanted it, and he'd sit there and then literally, he's right here next to me. I mean, he's close. He's like, yeah, turn it. And he's looking through the lens and putting it in position. And so that part was very technical. He wanted exactly what he wanted.
That's why he was the master, right?
So he had all that in his brain, and then when you see it all put together, then it makes sense. I'm like, I get it.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned my actual next note and question was about, because I'd heard you discuss somewhere else about how he wanted to move like a phantom. And as soon as I heard you say that, I was like, that is so what you got across. That first brief shot in the house where you like run across the hallway. Mm-hmm. I remember seeing that in the TV commercials, just that brief second and being so freaked out. I was like, I'm never going to see this movie. Like, it scared me so much. So you really got that creepy. I mean, I hope I'm not insulting other stunt people who have portrayed the role, but I think that opening scene is the most creepy that Ghostface ever feels, the most terrifying.
Yeah, and that's great. I love to hear that, because that's what I wanted to portray. And the Ghostface character, in my opinion, has diluted down to almost too much slapstick.
Yeah.
He's just an idiot at this point. He can't even walk up a flight of stairs without tripping. He runs in the doors. He's just stupidly campy. And after the third one, that whole element of that character was gone.
Yeah, I agree.
And to the franchise, the franchise was a little bit campy, a little bit fun. It was the first time that a movie within a movie, and they would talk about other movies in a movie, right? So it was very targeted, very specific. There was a whole science behind that film at that time. And so as the sequences kept going and going, it got diluted down and more and more and more. And that the Ghostface of now doesn't move anything like 1, 2, and possibly 3. It's just they've taken that character and dumbed him down too much. It's gone past the point.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's just my take on it, just because I hatched that character with Wes and Tony way back in the day. And I talked to a lot of rabid fans like you guys, and that's kind of like a unsaid thing. Yeah, we still like the genre, we still like the films that are fun and da-da-da, but when you start dissecting it, how the character is and what, how it moves and everything, it's apples and oranges.
Yeah, it's never been as creepy as you got it in that first part.
No.
I would say that Scream's a pretty hard movie to follow. To have any sequels at all. Like, the film was so groundbreaking. Like, for anything to be that would be almost impossible.
It was, and the second one wasn't too bad. I think the part when there's a couple of parts in like the second one, like where Nev gets chased around the sound studio, or no, it was Courtney Cox.
Yeah,
that got chased around the sound.
That's Courtney. Yeah. Yep.
Right. So really suspenseful. That's Wes doing what Wes does. The part where Nev crawls out over me in the cop car after we crashed it.
That's still one of the most tense for me. Like,
riveting.
That one's still
riveting. Here's the behind the scenes on that one. We've been shooting all night. I'm tired because I did the whole sequence. We shot it in one. We did the whole sequence in one night for the most part. And so by the time we get to the part where we crashed the car, and I'm sitting in the car. It's dark 30. We're downtown Pasadena, and I was like, and Nev is just bringing it, right? She hit that scene perfect, and Wes and her just didn't sync. And I'm tired. I'm sore. I'm beat up. Things are bruised. And she's like, and she's a very sweet woman. And she's like, I don't want to step on him. Like, Nev, get out of the car, right? Just do your thing and get out of the car. I want to go home. I need some Advil. Leave me alone. And so,
let's go.
Yeah, and she's just working it. And her and Wes, they didn't do a bunch of takes, but we sat there, and it takes a while to light it and do some coverage. So we sat around I sat around for a little bit more. But I was like, I don't care if you step on me. Get out the car. That was a long night for me.
Paid off, though. An amazing scene.
Yeah, it was. That was a really intense scene. I was watching that not too long ago. I'm like, man, I forgot how intense that scene was.
Good one.
And that was her great acting and Wes's great, directing, and he knew how to get that suspense and draw that out, and he hit it perfect.
Yeah.
Totally. So just kind of going back to the intensity of the scene you filmed with Drew. So we've seen some behind the scenes stuff where it looks like it's really cold. There's a lot of physicality happening. There's a lot of blood on her at certain points, of course. What was she like on set, despite all of that?
Oh, she had total positive energy, man. Just bubbly and fun, total pro. Didn't miss a beat, hit her mark. She was, she's so easy and easygoing, and she had a great attitude. Because if you look in the behind the scenes stuff, right? Everybody's got jackets on except
I know,
right?
She's barefoot.
She's barefoot. She's got on wardrobe. She weighs she's this big around, probably weighs 90 pounds, right? And she didn't complain about being cold, and she was cold, and even when you get on these robes, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but this is the Scream 1 robe.
Oh, awesome.
When you put that on, normally they're hot and you can't breathe and you can't see, right?
Of course.
But that night, I was not sweating, let's put it that way. Normally you're a big sweaty mess. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I was comfortable, so anybody else had jackets on, I was okay. Drew was cold. I mean, there's no way around it. It was cold. We were up there, and I don't know where we shot that sequence. That house, I think, was in Petaluma.
It's Glen Ellen, right? Same area.
Right.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it was chilly, and I'm dragging her through wet grass because everything had dew on it.
Yeah.
She was a trooper, man.
Yeah, you can tell in the thing that she's like seems to be having a good time. Like there's a lot of like smiling in between and then jumping around, but it's really great to hear that she's exactly the way that we know her to be.
Yeah, if you ever caught her, her TV show or any of her stuff on like Instagram and stuff, that's her, man. It's the real deal.
But every time we've met her, we're like, somehow she exceeds the expectation of how you expect her to be. It's like,
and we already know how she is.
Yeah.
She's very grounded, very humanistic. I mean, she's just a really cool person.
Love that.
You get what you see.
Yeah, very real.
Very real.
Speaking of seeing things, do you remember your reaction to seeing the completed movie for the first time?
Yeah, I can't remember if we did a screening on that. I'm pretty sure we did, and I don't remember if I was there, if I was working. I think I went to the screening on that. And it's neat because it's a double-edged sword. When you make a movie and you're seeing it and you're trying to enjoy the film, right? And like once you know how movies are made, it takes a great piece of film work for me to turn my brain off and just enjoy a movie. Because I look at everything technically. Like I look at the lighting, especially you have some beautiful cinematography, or there's maybe this great camera move. I'm like, oh, that was a really great shot. People don't say that. They know that they like the movie and they can't tell you per se why, but so yes, I enjoyed watching the final product. And one of the things that Wes and I were talking about one day, and we're talking about movies in general, he's like, there's 3 movies. When you make a movie, you have 3 movies. He goes, you get the script, that's movie 1. You got the one in your head and you shoot a movie, that's 2. And then you get the final one that goes out, that's the 3rd. So you actually have 3 movies in one. Yep. But it's really the final cut that makes the difference because that's what everybody gets to see.
Yep. I mean, but you hear a lot how much a movie changes in the editing room.
So yeah, I've been on the editing room a lot. A lot in my career. So,
nice.
I'm like,
Very
I didn't
cool.
make it. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad they kept you in this one.
Yeah, so am I. Yeah. It's funny because there's one of the it's not necessarily rumor because it's accurate, is there's on the opening scene, remember when I put my head through the window, right? And she right. So I shot that with Wes. Wes saw it in dailies the next day, because back in that time you would sit there and take your film, rush it out, get it developed, come back, look at the days prior shooting. So he saw the dailies from that day, and he didn't like what he saw. And it wasn't nothing personal. He just didn't like the rhythm or cadence or whatever that in that film that he didn't like. So he went back in real quick and shot it. Because I wasn't on set that day, so he went back and reshot it with him. And
so that is true. I have heard that before, but it always seemed like
yeah. But here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. He did that, and then he liked mine better and put it back in.
Great.
Yeah, and that is collaborated by Tony C, the stunt coordinator, because he was in on that and obviously was a stunt. So we were just talking about that specific scene the other day at lunch.
Oh, that's so funny.
Like, yeah, so it went from me to Wes back to me.
Great.
So I don't direct
That's
and
awesome.
Wes shouldn't do stunts.
Yeah, right.
That's cool. So one last question before we let you go, Lee. And by the way, that's my older brother's name, so I always been fond of that name.
Yeah, it's a great name.
It is. It's a really good, simple name.
Well, I appreciate them naming him after me.
So the last question we have just kind of like loops us back to your connections to Drew, and we're wondering if you have any unique or fun memories that you could share about your time with Drew.
So it's actually one of my, I wouldn't say fun. So like I said, I dropped her on her face, right?
Yes,
And that
we
just,
got that one.
that one like, I think it
unique.
scarred me. I think it's like this, I think I have PTSD from that scene. So, that's just, that endeared me to her because that was a full-on stunt. That should have been stunt woman. We couldn't do it. So any actor, actress that could cowboy up like that and take a hit and like, hey, let's get this film done and let's put it in the can. I know it's going to hurt and still do it. I like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I really appreciated that about her. And then her and I had it when we went on to Scream. You'll see in the behind the scenes thing. I always treat everybody as well as I can. It was nice to be able to like pick her up off the ground, pick her up, shake her off a little bit, and let her go bounce off and beat Drew. So she was a pro. I enjoyed it, and it was a good time, and I was so blessed to be a part of that. And especially now we get to revisit it and talk about it and keep that franchise going. And 6, I hope something beautiful comes out of 6. Yeah, I'll cross all those fingers because boy, we'll see. I hope it does. It's good for the franchise, and we want to keep the franchise going. And so yeah, Drew's a pro. I really would like to cross her path again.
That's awesome.
And maybe we want to, maybe one of these days we will. But she's so busy. I mean, that woman's just. She's got a dynasty rolling right now. TV
She's got
shows,
her hands in everything.
And product lines and dog product lines and magazines, and she's just eating it up. She's crushing it. And I'm really excited about that. That's really cool because she's such a sweet person. I wish her nothing but success, and she seems to be doing it quite well.
Yeah, it's great. Oh, that's so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all these stories and these memories and cool pieces of information we didn't already know. It's such a pleasure.
Anytime, guys. You guys are a lot of fun. I really appreciate you letting me come out here and ramble on and laugh a little bit and tell a few stories. So I appreciate that. And then, hopefully, we'll see each other on Instagram. So.
Yeah. So make sure we'll be like tagging you, and you'll be in the description, and we'll put a link to your website on our page and everything.
Do all that great stuff, and let all your viewers come and find me under the Lee Waddell, which is the best way because you saw my sister account, the original Ghostface.
Oh,
I did that.
That's your sister.
Yeah, because I did that. I'm totally blessed and very humbled to say this, but when you say original Ghostface, I am that guy because of that scene, which is great. And I'm very honored to say that. They go, who's Lee Waddell? I don't know. Some guy, right? And so those two are tied together now.
Oh, great. That's good.
And I started that as a backup account because how many horror stories, pun intended, of like, oh, my account got hacked or it got shut down or whatever. So I've always had that sister account as a backup to the Lee Waddell account.
Perfect. That's
just in case.
Yeah, it is smart.
Just in case.
And then I will find that Entertainment Tonight footage for you, and I'll email.
I would love to see that. And if you do, send it to me. But go ahead and throw it up on Instagram because that's how I found you guys, right?
Yeah.
And that's how we stay connected to the awesome Scream Nation and horror fans in general. Because I grew up on horror. I am a horror fan first, right? Because I grew up on black and white Dracula and Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff and all that cool stuff. And being involved with horror now, like with you guys and podcasts and conventions and original Ghostface and all that stuff, it's a love, it's all about the fans. It's all about having fun. And like, I love going to conventions. I was just in one in Son of a Monster Palooza, which is here in SoCal because I'm in Southern California right now. And I went there just as a fan. Didn't sign anything, didn't do anything. I just went around and looked at some really cool artists and visual effects people. I'm like, man, this is cool stuff. And I just got to geek out and be a horror fan, right? And it was really fun. I really appreciated doing that. It was nice because you guys have been to these conventions and they're chaotic. You get,
Sometimes it's probably nice to just be as a spectator rather than having
yeah, it
to-
was because, and I'm very blessed to do them, and they're a lot of fun because I get to connect with crazy rabid fans that know every line, every angle, every mask. I don't know. I'm like, yeah, it's a mask. You don't. It was like, oh, it has 3 dimples, 2 dimples. It's
Oh,
this
I
gender. I'm
know.
like, what
There
are you
are-
talking about?
There are
And they're
mask
just,
experts out there.
yeah, well, like I should talk, right? Looking behind me. So, it was so fun just to go out and be just a spectator and be a guy because, as much as I love being behind that table and connecting, which is fun, once you're in that table, I'm not going to let up until that last person gets a picture or sign or whatever they want. And if that's 2 o'clock in the morning, so what? Let's go. This is what it's about.
That's
So
awesome.
it's really cool to get out and just walk around and see cool stuff.
Well, you're
That's great.
connected to one of the biggest franchises, the fans that are the most passionate, I feel like. So it's great that
I'll agree. I'll tell you what. I mean, if you look at it, I know we're burning the clock here, but I mean, look at that era that all those films came out. So, we got Friday the 13th, we got Nightmare, we got Scream, we have Saw, Halloween.
yeah, Halloween
Several-
fans are pretty big too, I think.
I mean, Halloween is what, 40 years old now,
Right.
right? Scream's 25.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that was this really great like era of horror. Was that mid 80s, that mid 90s? There was just cool stuff coming out. It was all practical, no CG
I
yet.
know.
And you've seen some other podcasts, and we talk about that a lot against practical effects, against CG effects. And I'm a big practical guy because that was when I went to film school and came up, that's all we had.
You can
Yeah.
just feel a difference with it, I think. Like that you just can't recreate that something real.
Well, that's true. And the audiences of today are so well educated,
Mhm.
right? Do you remember, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, maybe more than that, they started doing all the behind sneaky peeky stuff of Hollywood magic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And once that started, it started educating the audience. And it was great to let the audience see the behind the scenes, but we kind of cut our own throats in a sense.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
things it's
And
hard.
that was
for things
that's
to
another
feel
pun for you guys.
magical.
So yeah, you took all that, it takes the magic away because people, middle America got to see how cool movie magic was made. And once you educated them, it's like, oh yeah, that was done this way, or now it's CG, and like I said, I love practical effects. If you could do it for real, do it for real.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of directors that are, in my opinion, not that I'm really heavily involved anymore, but there's a lot of directors that are kind of going back that direction a little bit.
I hope that happens. That's sort of how it feels inevitable. The tides always change.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
totally.
not to take away from CG because it exploded the stunt field. When we could sit there and do stuff with green screens and wires and all this cool stuff and not have to worry about hiding it anymore because you could just literally take an eraser on the film and just erase it out. I mean, where do you think all this beautiful wire work came from? I mean, we're zinging people
That's
across
true.
the sky, right? So that all came out of CGI and CG in general because we get to just erase whole chunks of apparatus,
Yeah. So it's like everyone's super safe. It's like, okay, well, we've got the stunt person, but they are also on a bunch of straps and they're going to be fine.
Yeah, we're on a green screen, we got pads all over the place, we got a 1/2-inch piece of Kevlar rope, I mean, and you can't miss. And it allowed us to do that. And then it's the beauty of making movies is you can erase all that stuff out and you don't see it, and yet you can just do incredible stuff. So that was the advantage of computers in that sense.
Yeah. It's like
You
gotta have a
I'm
balance.
still a practical guy. We know when you're going to cut somebody's head off or you stab them, you just got to just go there.
Just slam their face into the pavement for real.
Yeah, just
right?
drop them on their face. Sorry, Drew, if you're
Barrymore
watching
did
this.
it.
And I will say this. I'm like, we figured out how to do it, but we didn't have a stunt double. And then her and the director worked that thing out. Because I took direction. I'm like, yeah, I'll drop you on your face, but that didn't set well with me. And I still just, like I said, I have PTSD. So
You came back and killed her again. So.
yeah, I'm sure she probably wanted it the other way around, but it didn't work for script. That's my last sequel. Somebody asked me the other day on a podcast that would you ever go back? And I'm like, yeah, I think in number 7, I want them to resurrect Drew somehow and have her kill me. So I can just
Full
boom,
circle.
bookends. Yes. So when the writers see this, it's like, okay, we got to bring him out of retirement and pay her about $10 million. They pay me 10. And then I think wouldn't that be great bookends though?
That'd be
So,
amazing.
I'd be here
That would
for
just
it.
You know
be
what?
hilarious.
It's like CG, they can just make her Casey from that year.
There you go. Yeah, take her back to 96.
Yeah, and something. It's
It
just like
all.
it'll be a whole dream sequence, and then it's like instead of me killing her, she kills me. So
Oh my
I
God.
think that would be just apropos if we could just bookend my career with that one.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Lee, for taking the time to chat with us. This was so cool. We were really stoked about it.
Well, thanks for having me on for as your first guest. I'm really super honored. I can't wait to see this when you guys, edit out all the laughing we did. And then
We leave a
anytime.
The
lot of
laughing
laughing
stays.
in. Yeah. Half of our podcast is just laughing.
Yeah, well, that's what's so fun about the podcast is, we sit there and it's always so refreshing to kind of get in there and start talking and freeform it and see where it goes, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Great.
best.
Totally.
So I really
Totally.
appreciate you
Thanks
guys.
for being game.
Oh yeah, anytime, any place, especially if you see me out there on the conventions, come on by and say hi.
Cool.
But we'll do a live feed and really turn it on its head.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you again. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you guys. Everybody be safe, and I will see you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, bye.